the most vast person and one of the most vast persons to speak on this topic today. In our midst today, as the panelists, would be having Engineer Felix Atta Arame, who is also the Chief Operating Officer and the co-founder of Energy Solutions Limited. Is a certified energy manager by the Association of Energy Engineers USA and holds a master's in energy with distinction from the prestigious Erasmus University, United Kingdom, and a BSc in electrical engineering from Louisiana Tech University, USA. Mr. Felix brings over 12 years worth of experience in the renewable energy sector with successful stints in Cummins West Africa Limited and Schneider Electric, where he successfully recorded business growth and expanded market share in new energy for both companies, respectively, while also driving continuous innovation and business improvement for commercial and industrial customers. Also, the topic today, as we stated earlier, promises to be mind-blowing, and we will all learn a great deal as the future and technology, especially when the global warm-up is catching up with all parts of Africa, most especially. We hope that at the end of today's session, everyone gets to go home with a thing to do, while also opening their knowledge with regards to energy. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Minerat, for that very brief and robust introduction of our panelists. So I would now like to invite Engineer Felix Atta to please give his presentation. Please, you have the floor.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Engineer Felix Atta Arame. Absolutely very happy to be here today. It's a privilege to be on this session with the Nigerian Taekwondo Advancement Initiative team. It's indeed a privilege to be here, and I would really love to, show you guys some of the things that are happening within the energy field. It's I know it's away from what you guys are used to in terms of your sporting activities in the Taekwondo field, but like you rightly said, Munira, it's knowledge that would eventually transcend beyond the sporting Taekwondo that you guys are used to, and definitely will benefit you on the long run in different activities within the different spaces that you all are trying to delve into in the future. And I'm sure after this session, you would learn one or two things that you can take home and might even change the way you see energy and the way you see things, green practices and technologies in the world today and in Nigeria. So again, I'm very happy to be here. So I would start the presentation, and we can have the Q&A session, and we can have that towards the end of the presentation. But I will just start now. So the next slide, please. All right, so the agenda for today is strictly, I'm just going to be very, very open and clear on the issues that happen within the energy space, starting off from the international space up until the local space here in Nigeria, and sort of like show and show the different forms of energy, the sources that we have, up until the history of energy. And then I would touch base on the trends that are happening in the industry today, in the world, and then deep dive into the goals and targets that have been set by international bodies that also transcends to we here in our own local climate and where we are today. and how the future of energy is going to be in the next future and the next couple of years. And then I will touch base on different players in the market, in the space, and I'm sure some of you all here would also want to be very much carried along on, careers that you can build up in the space, the different areas that you can play, you can come in, some of you might have those questions in mind, as, students or recent graduates, that despite you being in the sporting field and taekwondo, you also want to, have some experience or maybe interest in energy, and you want to go into some parts of the energy field. So the last part of the presentation, I kind of highlight the different areas that you or those who may be interested will be interested in taking over. So briefly, for some of us that might be science oriented in this floor, I'm sure those who have done elementary physics in one way or the other can say, okay, what is energy? Why do we talk of energy? Energy is a very broad field, but I try to break it down into different parts so that we can, kind of get a grasp of what it is as when we talk of energy. So energy is divided. There are two types, basically. So it's either a kinetic or potential. So energy can either be in moving, when you talk of kinetic, energy in motion, or energy that is stable, is stagnant, is potential, and then you can definitely harness that potential to generate other forms of energy. So that's basically what energy is when you speak of energy. But the other aspect of it is, for these energy types, what are the other types that come out of it? So when you talk of the kinetic aspect, you talk of radiant energy from the sun, with all the sun that shines in the daytime, and how the electromagnetic, for those who are in science field, I won't speak too much deep dive into that, but for those that understand the electromagnetic spectrum, you have radiation that comes from the sun that also affects plants, affects the general earth movements and plants photosynthesis and all those different things. Those are energy. This is sort of like radiant energy that comes from the sun. We also have thermal energy. When you talk of energy from heating, you have sound energy. As I'm speaking to you right now, you all can hear me very clearly, and definitely sound is transformed through sound waves. My speech is transferred through sound waves, and you are able to hear me very clearly. So sound is energy in motion, right? You can actually hear me because of the sound energy. When you talk of electrical, you talk of electrons through wires and cables. Where you have something that pushes the electricity through a cable, and that cable gets to your home. That's why you're able to have light. That's why we're able to have a session today, because there's light, and we're able to see because we have electrons moving through cables that we're able to, to harness. And when you talk of potential energy, you talk of energy with very, very good example will be your fossil fuel energy, like energy you get from oil, right? It's found in the ground. It's found under the Earth's crust, right? When you drill for oil, and that oil is not moving, right? It's just oil. And until you refine it, you're able to get other forms of energy like diesel and fuel and all the different types of fuel constituents that you can pull out of it, right? When you also talk of elastic energy, for example, you're talking of energy in, like a rubber, for example, and then energy, when you pull rubber, for example, you can see that it has some kind of energy that's elapsed and all of that. So those are the kinds of explanation, and there are other forms of energy, but these are the basic ones that, I would highlight for today, right? And when you talk of gravitational, you're also talking about, movement of gravity against the Earth's surface, because right now we're on the Earth, right? And we are able to, despite the fact that the Earth is rotating, right? Human beings still don't rotate while the Earth is rotating, right? Our houses are still in place. We're still moving around the Earth. So it's because of the gravitational energy that allows us to stay, right, in that position. And that's what gravitational is all about. So basically, these are the two major forms, and these are the constituents of those forms of energy, right? So next slide, please. All right. So I'm sure most of us here might have heard one or two things about when you speak on non-renewable and renewable. It's very clear, detailed explanation of the different types of different sources of energy. We've spoken about types of energy and forms. So this is more like sources. So what kind of energy can we get from different places, right? Because the idea is, which I'll speak on the following slides, is why do we need energy? What are the uses of this energy? Why do we care about having energy? And before we even talk of caring about it, how do we harness it? And this is what this slide speaks to. So you have different particular sources, and the ones that are conventional, the ones that we are used to, and the ones that are exposed to over time, and that has been there for over time, is the non-renewable ones, which is more like crude oil, gas, energy, because those ones happen to be gotten. They are finite because they are available through exploiting the Earth's what the Earth has in terms of energy from the ground, or energy through flaring and all of that. These are non-renewable energy. This is energy that constitutes carbon emissions, right? This is where the world tends to shift away from right now, and you can call this energy non-renewable, right? You can argue with me that nuclear energy might be in between renewable and renewable, but it's still finite. It's still gotten from uranium, right? And that's how nuclear energy is gotten out from. And coal is energy that we know constitutes a lot in terms of emissions, right, in the atmosphere, right? Because it occurs, it's finite, and it has a lot of carbon that goes straight into the atmosphere. So these are very dangerous energy sources. But when we talk of renewable energy sources, that's when we talk of cleaner energy sources. These are energy sources that the world is shifting towards. And that's where we speak on towards the hydro energy, which is energy that's that's gotten from water. You displace water over a potential surface, and you allow it flow and generate energy. We have hydro dams in Nigeria, for example, and these are sources of energy that we can use to generate clean energy. Tidal energy is energy from these ocean bodies, where you're working with waves and troughs through the ocean bodies, and you're able to generate energy through tidal. What is most common in our own environment here is solar energy, because we know it's energy from the sun. We have vast amounts of solar resource in Nigeria because it's available almost all year round, apart from maybe 3 months, 2 months in the year where we have rain season and it's a bit cloudy and sometimes. But despite that, we still have vast deposits of solar. We also have wind energy. In some parts of Nigeria, we have some wind, being harnessed for energy. We have biomass gotten from plants and trees and all those different things that can be harnessed. These are all renewable and cleaner energy sources. Geothermal is actually gotten from the earth crust, but what you do is you get a lot of heat out of geothermal and you transform that heat into power, or in advanced climates, they use that for cooling and heating of homes and industries. And they're using it for also, the heat that is generated can also be used for manufacturing and all of those different things. And then you have biofuels, and which is also from plants. And then you have ocean energy and the other types of energy that may not be here, but these are called renewable energy sources. So these are the different sources available, right? Yeah, you can go ahead. Okay, so we've talked about the sources of energy and the forms of energy. So now we want to look at, why do we even care about energy? And I know you're seeing a very elaborate slide here that shows a lot of stuff, right? But what is key here for we all to understand is that the basic need for energy there are 4 basic needs. There might be other needs, but there are 4 basic needs. Electricity is one part of it. Without energy, we can't be here having this webinar. Without energy, we can't do a lot of stuff. Without energy, economic activities slows down, right? We know what happens when we don't have lights, and you know what can happen in that light when we don't have power. Heating is also another reason why we need energy. We need energy to heat things. Most of the things that are being manufactured, if you go to manufacturing plants and commercial environments, they need a lot of heat, right? And this heat, most of this heat is generated through energy and power. Transport is a key area that is going through a lot of transformation now. In the transport space, you need fuel to run your cars, your vehicle, right? And with the advancements, which I will touch later, in electric vehicles, you also need electric to power those vehicles. Either you're powering it in your home or you're powering it through a commercial space like a fuel station where you have, a EV power station where you have vehicles that can be powered up and the lights. And then cooking, especially in advanced nations, you need gas to cook, right? Even here in Nigeria, you need gas. In some cases, you need electric to cook. So these are the basic reasons why we need this power. And if you look at the picture that shows on the left-hand side, you see that all these different sources of energy, whether it's renewable or non-renewable, are being harnessed in different ways, right? And when you harness this energy in different ways, you can see how the harnessed energy can flow in different forms to generate some kind of use that you use in the daily, just as driving a car, or, a train, taking a train, all these differences, even to as far as the TV you watch at home, all these things are all powered by energy sources. And then, but the idea is, what kind of energy source is powering that? And that's where the world is now being focused on to see how do we power different forms or these different uses. How do we do it cleaner? How we do it so that we don't have a detrimental effect on our environment? And that's where I'll touch later on, and you'll see why the world today is thinking about these uses. How do we make this our use to be much, much cleaner and better? Before we even think of energy, where are we today? We talk of the history of energy. Why the world population today, since the early 20th century, you can see that the population has grown rapidly, exponentially over the century and beyond. It still keeps growing up. I've not seen a situation where you have the world population going down. It's always going up, right? I think right now we're in the region of about 8 billion people worldwide, right? And if you look at in the 1900s, we were just below 2 billion. So as the population increases, right, there is a direct relationship between world population and energy consumption. So as the world population increases with industrial revolution, different things that have happened over time, you find out that there's more need for energy over time. And that creates a problem because as energy requirements or energy demand increases, so there has to be areas where we have to create avenues where people can be able to utilize energy, because energy as a whole is a basic human right. Everyone needs to have energy, right, to be able to function properly, to be able to end inequality, because without energy you can't function, you can't do a lot of things. More economic activities not there. So in the history, we've seen that happen and a trend in energy consumption. So the world today, the international bodies have thought about this and said, okay, how do we try to, even if the energy consumption increases, but how do we limit the exponential growth of energy, right, over time? And that's when we start to think of efficient use of energy. We start to think of the renewable source of energy that can reduce the detrimental effects to our atmosphere and climate change. You can see what's happening in the world today, rain falling in areas that are not supposed to fall. Recently, UAE, it had rains at the wrong time. It's never fallen in UAE for years, but you find that rain fell, even some areas that are not supposed to snow, you find snow, falling. These are all effects of climate change. And that's where the international United Nations and different bodies have started to say, how do we make this better for everyone? So in 2010, you will see that fossil fuel took a very huge chunk of our energy that we use globally, right? It's about roughly about 80%. And renewables, although we've seen a lot of injection of renewables over time, 2010 was just about 16.7%. 2020, we've seen just about 4% rise in the renewable energy injection. And thanks to countries in Europe like Germany, who has also done a lot in terms of accelerating the growth, the injection of renewables within their own energy sources and of the energy sources they use to generate their electricity and other uses. They've done a lot. But we have countries that are still lagging behind and they're not doing a lot. And that's where the international bodies have come together to say, how can we make it better? How can we accelerate this change? How can we reduce the effect of carbon emissions to our atmosphere? And how can we improve this livelihood and the source of things? So if you look at the last slide, fossil fuel as an energy source, which we know constitutes coal, gas, crude oil, and all these dirty sources of energy. There's a one-directional energy flow at which they are being generated. So you have the generation, there's a transmission, there's a distribution, and then there's a consumption. These are old ways at which energy has been harnessed over time. But as we go, we'll see how the advancements have happened and is currently advancing right now. Okay, so you asked, the House will ask, what is the sort of like electrification rate right now in the world today? So in 1998, we had, just about 6 billion people with access to electricity, right? But as there's been a lot of advancement over time, things have happened, the international bodies, a lot of collaboration between different players, and we've seen a lot of injection of finance into different areas, especially Africa, where we have in sub-Saharan Africa, where we have more of the areas where we don't have access to energy, right? There's been a lot of finance institutions, development institutions that have come in to help to accelerate this growth of energy within the space. And we've seen the electrification rates grown tremendously over time. So right now, we have about 6 to 7 billion population that has grown with access to electricity, right? And we have seen a decrease in the locations that have no access, that are without access to electricity. But majority of those areas that you see without access to electricity today still lies in Africa, and not just Africa as a whole, but sub-Saharan Africa. So we're talking of Nigeria, not South Africa, but Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and some other parts of Africa, Rwanda, and the rest of them. Those countries within the East, West Africa, and a bit of South Africa are still lacking access to electricity. And this is where the world is really concerned about today. So I'll speak about the energy today. So yeah, we can just go to the next slide. Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, if you look at this map, you will see that, all those areas where you're seeing a lot of red marks, these are areas that lie within the sub-Saharan Africa, the red and black marks. So you can see that even the black area, the areas that are painted black, are areas that have the least access to electricity today. And these lie within the sub-Saharan Africa. We have also areas within the West Africa that are also suffering from access to energy. And it's a big problem, and that's where the international bodies, and this is where United Nations have come to say, okay, how do these international players come together, to try to help these non-developed areas to accelerate the growth of energy within this space. And that's where a lot of support has been coming from the international players, United Nations, and a few of them that have done a lot. World Bank has also done a lot within this space to accelerate and build up development in this area in terms of energy access. And not just energy access using fossil fuel technologies, but cleaner and better energy sources. So today, we still have people that have like Nigeria still has a very low electrification rate. Just about 50% of people that are without energy access and lies in the rural area. And these are areas that need to be focused on, because like I said earlier, energy is a basic human right for everyone. And everyone has to have access to energy to reduce inequality and also end poverty, sort of, in a way. So that's where the world is concerned about right now. And besides that, we're also concerned about climate change as a whole. Right, next slide. Okay, so like I was saying, if you look at this slide, you look at, okay, which countries are doing very well? Some countries are doing very well. If you look at Canada, look at Germany, look at United States, right? They have almost 100% at parity of electrification, right? Everywhere has access to electricity. Okay, some of them might be not 100% clean energy, which they are still working towards, sustaining that and making the energy cleaner for everyone. But if you look below, you find countries that are still dabbling with energy access, not even concerned about electrification. You can see Chad. Chad is doing very badly right now. But what is not so good to hear, and we are Nigerians here. You can see our neighbor Ghana, initially in the early 1990s to 1995, they were below Nigeria in terms of electrification, right? Nigeria was doing better. I'm sorry, Nigeria was doing better, yeah. And then by the time we got towards the 2020s and 2021, we started to see, even before then, the 2000s and the millennium, we started to see Ghana take, even a much greater chunk of electrification. There's a lot happening there. Nigeria still has a lot of gap to do, but I can understand we have more population, but it's still something that we need to work on, and a lot of things needs to be done to accelerate the energy access to people within Nigeria that have problems. And you can see there's a lot of progress that has been made, right? But the rate of change and the rate at which this is done needs to be more, it needs to be catalyzed. We need to do more to accelerate this change. So that just speaks to this and speaks to what is happening right now in the space. So the question goes to everyone here on the call, and just for us to understand, how do we provide, right? How do we improve and provide energy access to people derived of it? I know that we all here are sportsmen. We do a lot within the sports space, but energy is a concern for everyone, whether you're a sport person, whether whether you're doing anything. Everybody needs energy, right? So it's a problem for us. And how do we accelerate and improve quality of life of people, especially those who are also interested and in the energy field? And that's how we think for us that are in the energy field. How do we accelerate it? Because you have nearly about 685 million people that don't have access to electricity today, which is a lot, just slightly above 500 million people, right? And most of those people are still constituted in Africa, right? And this is where some of the problems are. Aside the climate change situation, which we still need to tackle, there's still a problem of energy access, which is always the case that goes around most times. And reading through papers and all of that, you find out that even some analysis has been done to identify that there's a lot of investment that still has to happen, because the goal is by 2030 for us to have, energy access everywhere. There's a goal that is set by international bodies, but there's a lot of investment that needs to come in to be able to achieve this growth, right? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so if you look at it in the next 30 years or thereabouts from now, almost 30 years from now, you can see that they are stipulating that renewable energy will take a huge chunk of the energy generation, right? Yeah, but these are just stipulations, right? It still needs to triple what we have right now to be able to achieve that goal, right? That's projection by the International Renewable Energy Association Agency to be able to get to what we have. They are postulating that fossil fuels will drop drastically to about 5% by 2050, which is what the body is suggesting and projecting. It's achievable, right? But this involves to be a lot of collaboration needs to happen, because the rate at which the rate at which is being done right now, or rate at which countries are accelerating this change. Yeah, it's happening a lot. If you look around, there's a lot more renewable energy injection there, but Africa still needs a lot. And that's where finance comes into place, right? Because international bodies, they need to support more developers here to locally improve this injection. Also, government bodies and regulations also need to be able to support this growth that the international bodies are actually speculating that we would achieve by 2050. All right. So what are the goals that we keep talking about? Talk about goals. United Nations set up goals. Countries have come together. About 197 of them have come together to set targets. So now I'll talk about some of the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals today. And what are the targets, right? What are the targets for us or for the world today? Okay, so there are about 17 goals. They call them sustainable development goals. But all these goals speaks to ending poverty, also ending inequality, and also protecting the planet. But what is key for us here on this space and for the benefit of what we're speaking about today is the goal 7, the goal 11, and the goal 13. And this is because they are centered around climate change. They're centered around affordable and clean energy, and also centered around sustainable cities. So I'll speak a lot more on those ones because of time, and then we can all find time to go over the rest whenever, if we are interested to go over there. But what it speaks to is mostly for ending poverty, inequality, and protecting the planet. So these are goals set by United Nations for sustainable development. Next slide. All right. So we need to ensure that the world today, the United Nations have set, with countries that have come together in 2015 to say, how do we improve quality of life by making energy much more affordable and sustainable for all? So this is a driver. This is a driver for what's happening today, right? If you look at the SDG goal for 11, right, it's also saying, how do we reduce environmental impact on our cities, right? It's by stopping the use of fossil fuel-based technologies and improving quality of life. If you look at Nigeria today, you find out there's a lot is going on. Even NNPC, for example, is doing a lot to change. They've set up CNG plants that are going to, that you can able to convert your vehicle from fuel-based to CNG, right? You can do that transformation and be able to run on CNG gas. Today, it's happening today in Nigeria. And these are initiatives that would help reduce sometimes help reduce the type of fuel we use and improve sustainable cities. There's a lot going around smart grid technologies that also will help to improve sustainable cities. These are sort of initiatives that are happening both locally and also some international initiatives that also will help to improve quality of life. And then climate change, one of the goals is to combat climate change. And all these things are all interwoven one way or the other to improve the quality of life of citizens around the world. So go to the next slide. So there are all other areas like the COP28. I don't know if you've heard of COP28. COP28 was the latest coalition of parties. They call it coalition of parties. So sometimes the United Nations, the countries within the United Nations meet from time to time. So there was the first meeting that was COP1 up until the 28th one. So this happened. The latest one happened in UAE recently last year in 2023, where all parties, all regulators, all bodies, all parties from different countries come together to have, meeting on what next for the world, right? And the key things that they picked up from the last meeting was, how do we fast track the energy transition? And how do we slash emissions before 2030? So the goal has always been 2030, which is barely, some years to go, right? But how do we fast track that energy transition? And then if you look at there are 3 key areas, actually. The second one is transforming climate finance. So more or less like asking those countries that have access to finance, right? The developed countries that have, available funding, right? To be able to inject funding into non-developed areas to build and improve the energy access to those areas. And then lastly is to put the livelihoods of people in the act of climate action. So it's not just trying to just take out climate, just by saying, but people should be the basis at which we worry about climate change, right? Because it's not just climate change speaking out of the mouth, right? But we're able to do something that will improve the quality of life of people around the world, right? So those are the key areas that they focused on the last coalition of parties that held in UAE. So these are some of the drivers that is pushing the energy sector right now and things that are happening that I'm sharing with you all today. So next one. So the another area where countries signed the agreement. So a lot of countries in Africa has also signed. I think just about one country didn't sign. Yeah, but most countries have also participated in the international binding treaty. So it's a Paris. I'm sure some of us have heard about the Paris Climate Agreement, right? And this is all parties coming together to accept, to voluntarily to accept to combat climate change, right? Nigeria is also a part of it. And what is key, and people will always ask, is that how is this tracked? How are you able to track how countries have been able to do and make this transition or combat this climate change? So every 5 years, right, countries are allowed to provide, it's called an NDC. So it's a national, more like a national development contribution, right? So all your national development contributions are supposed to be submitted back to the treaty, right? I mean, to the international body, United Nations, to be able to confirm what countries are your country. As if you signed up to that agreement, you need to be able to show that you're actually making that advancement. So the federal government of Nigeria, through the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, is supposed to provide, and through the energy transition, because I think an energy transition team has been set up in Nigeria to be able to make this transition happen quickly. So they are supposed to submit the result of some of the initiatives they are doing through the United Nations. And this is how some of these things are tracked to see, okay, how are you performing? How are you doing? How is the country doing? And all of those different things, right? And this effort cannot be done by just one body. So all finance institutions, technology has to be improved for those in the science field. There has to be a lot of research, development, and the type of technology that has to be used within countries will differ from other countries, because different countries have their different climates, different areas that would harness renewable energy, right? And their capacity building. So for example, like what we are doing on this call today is more like capacity building. It's more like, in engaging everyone and trying to show everyone, just like whetting your appetite to say, these are some of the things that are happening in the energy space, right? And this is what can be done, right? And just like an overview, obviously there might be a need to do a deep dive if you're really interested to get to know more about the energy space, but this is more like an overview for everyone who is on the call today. The next slide. Yeah. All right, so this is just highlighting a framework by the International Renewable Energy Association, just more like to show all the different bodies and parties, the different things that can be done, and it sort of like highlights, through looking at the value chain of how sources of funds can come from government, multilaterals, more like the development financial institutions like African Development Bank. Some national development banks also get involved. Some foundations like NGOs, Rockefeller Foundation in United States, different climate funds too, like climate bonds and different things that are available in the space. And then, communities, different things that could provide this available funding for that can accelerate the growth of renewable energy and accelerate the growth and energy access to people around the globe. So we have also accelerators, like people that, like special purpose vehicles, different bodies that can also harness some of these funds. Like, for example, Development Bank in Nigeria today is also interested in, energy and, bringing in funds to help to accelerate the growth of energy within Nigeria, right? But most of the funds are also channeled through local banks. So local banks are more like intermediaries, right? They can also help to harness some of the funds. World Bank today brings in funds into Nigeria to improve quality of life through energy availability in different areas. But they can't channel that fund directly to developers. So they also go through the Renewable Energy Association in Nigeria to be able to, we're using some programs that are able to channel that fund to different developers in Nigeria. So these are examples of some of the things that are happening in the space, and the different solutions that are happening, which I'll touch briefly as we go to the next slide. That there are different solutions like standalone solutions. They, like, for example, the ones you have at home, different things. So if you look at the first picture on your left-hand side, those are examples of standalone solutions that you can use in your home, like solar solutions with inverters, batteries, and the rest of things, components that make up a standalone. So it's just you that's utilizing the energy. These standalone solutions comes in different forms. So if you look at the next slide, you see also a building that is utilizing solar panels, right? But the solar panels are not on the roof. They are on the carport, right? So these are different options, right? That constitute a standalone solution. But if you look at the third one, it's also a standalone solution, right? But it's a standalone solution for a rural community, right? It is much more smaller because there are requirements per capita, per human being living in the hut, for example, may not be as much as those living in the cities, right? So it's much, much smaller. But it's what it explains is that these are energy for one user, one family, one particular space, right? If you look at the one below, it's more stating like a mini grid solution, right? Mini grid solutions are much more like an interconnected grid solution that is outside the traditional grid that provides power to a community, right? I don't know if I'm, passing the message well, but it's just like a small power plant using solar panels to power a location. And then on the right-hand side, productive users. So these days, most of the finance bodies that are coming to invest in Nigeria are more interested in, productive use of energy. So how do we help farmers to improve the quality of their farm produce? By having irrigation systems, solar power systems to power the irrigation pumps that are having water that is being passed around the farms to improve the seedlings, and all those different things. So these are productive use of energy. And this is where the sort of like it drags a lot of finance, to developers that are interested in building such plans or such initiatives for farmers, right? And there are different types around. Yeah. Okay, so if you earlier said, I had this slide earlier in one of my slides where I described the traditional grid, right? Where you have a generation, you have a transmission, you have distribution and consumption, right? This is like, I won't bore you also too much with too much technicalities, but what this means is that the landscape has changed a bit, right? Rather than having generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption, like I know I mean, EKEDC, IKEDC, those are electricity distribution companies, right? Transmission company of Nigeria is a transmission company, right? And generation could be your generating plants, right? They're different ones in different parts of the nation. So that's just in a nutshell what it means, right? And then consumption are like you and me, we're all consumers, right? So we're the last tail of the value chain. But now, what is happening is that we as consumers, as consumption, as those that are consuming, are now called prosumers. So what that means is that we can also produce and consume at the same time. So what that means is that if you have a solar panel in your house that is generating power for you, you're already a producer of energy, right? And you're also consuming that energy. The only difference is in Nigeria here, we're not selling that energy, right? Because the grid does not allow us to sell the energy. In advanced countries, we can't sell the energy. But yeah, we can't sell the energy. We can only generate and use, right, for ourselves. So that's the change that is happening today. So now we have smart meters, we have electrical vehicles that you can charge in your homes if you have the electrical chargers. Different things are happening in the space and disrupting the usual flow of energy stream before. Now, even within the generation space, you can have multiple generation sources, right? So you can have, if you're using gas, for example, you can have mixed it with battery storage technology. You can mix it to wind technology, like you can see on the picture there, and you can have it with solar and the likes. So the landscape is changing. We're having more influx of different types of things that are within the natural energy flow before, and that is changing right now. And this is what also interests a lot of international players right now that say that, okay, they can actually come and invest here. They can actually come and give grants to people who are interested in, making the grid much more greener and all of those things, right? So this is just to show you guys some of the things that are happening also. And one more last thing on this also is the monetary flow. When you talk about monetary flow, it's sort of like how the funds are being flowing. So usually it used to be one way before. So as a consumer, you pay your energy bill that comes. You pay to Disco. Disco will pay the transmission company. Transmission company will pay the generation company. But right now it's changing. Rather than going one way, you cannot have a multi-way, meaning the the producer, I mean, the consumer can also sell power back into the grid, right? You can also sell, they can pay you. You can also pay them. So it's a multi-directional flow now of payments, right? Rather than what it used to be before. So can you go down a bit? Okay, so I'll just run through this a bit. When you talk of energy as a service, right? This is another advancement that is happening today. So rather than having to own a solar power plant in your home or have it, you're having to buy it outrightly, you can actually have a PPA, like the power purchase agreement between an owner of a power plant, like a solar power plant, right? Which is what is happening in the mini grids right now. So they don't own the solar infrastructure, right? Somebody comes in with the solar, comes in with the investment, installs the solar there, puts in meters in different homes, and then people can pay for their energy use over the lifespan of that installation. So this is an example of what the energy as a service means, right? So, you know, gone are the days where you own things right now. You see what's happening with Netflix. You see what's happening with Prime. You see what's happening with different things that are happening in the space, right? You don't need to have a CD anymore, right? To watch movies, right? You can just go online and, you know, watch your thing. This is exactly what's happening in the power space also, right? And it's not just happening in the rural space. You also have the same thing happening in the commercial space also, where industries don't longer own generators, own installations, don't have to install these things. But now there are investments that you can harness, right? That can provide this service as the owner of the power plant and provide it as a service to your customer. And this is more like how it works, right? You have an EPC partner, which is someone that installs the solution. You provide that solution from a technology partner like a Schneider Electric or any of the big companies out there. And, you know, you provide it as a service and you run it over a period of time. You sign a PPA agreement with the site owner, and then you just run on this model, and it works. This is a model that has been used in Nigeria already by a lot of businesses right now. So next slide. Just keep down all your questions, so maybe after the slides we can take them. So just quickly run through this also. If you look at slide 6, it's more like, you know, clean cooking. This slide shows this lady using a biofuel to power cooking in the rural location. So these are some of the things that biofuels can do for us. You know, there's biogas. There's so many of them that out there that you can use to generate clean cooking for people that have less access to a cooking that will traditionally use firewood and, you know, all those burning coal and kerosene and all those different things. So these are options for rural communities. The next slide, the next picture, sorry. The next picture on 7 will show you, you know, EVs, electrical vehicles. I'm sure you guys are all aware of electrical vehicles, and this is something that would eventually, I know people will argue that Nigeria has not gotten to the point where it can start accepting electrical vehicles, but the world is going on this already. So what would happen in the next couple of years when Tokumbo vehicles that are being sent to Nigeria are electric vehicles? So there's no way, we have to find a way to start to adapt to this change that is coming in, right? And the 8th picture also is an electrical vehicle, but this is charged in your home, right? You can charge it. So the picture on the 7 is showing chargers in a commercial environment, like maybe a school, a library. It could be any of those different things. But you also have chargers in your home that you can charge overnight, right? Your vehicle. These are electrical vehicles. The 9 picture is showing you like I spoke earlier about CNG, right? These are CNG gas tanks that are put in your vehicle. This is happening in Nigeria today. You can customize your vehicle and transform the engine from internal combustion engine, which is fuel combustion, and you change that into compressed natural gas, and the gas is stored in the back seat, right? This reduces your cost. Initially, it actually reduces the cost of fuel that you use for your cars, and it also helps the environment. So these are initiatives by NNPC that is going on right now. And then the last picture shows you just hydrogen fuel. So in California today, you see a lot of vehicles that are powered by hydrogen cells, fuel cells. These are technologies that are actually happening today, and vehicles are able to use hydrogen, hydrogen itself, that splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, and then you harness the hydrogen for power, and then you store it in a battery that helps to run the car. All you just need to do is buy your hydrogen from the fuel station, and then you run your vehicle. Okay, so there are also sort of like other future technologies that might be interesting to we all hear. So I'll just kind of touch base on each one of them. Blockchain, we all know what blockchain is happening right now. So more like a peer-to-peer immutable system that sort of like harnesses all the different parts of all the different key players. We're talking about energy now, within the energy space. All the key players within the peer-to-peer conversation, it's kind of immutable, right? So this blockchain also is applicable to the energy space. So we have companies that are coming in to make sure that the payment systems, everything is so seamless within the using the blockchain blockchain advancements to be able to create an energy flow, an energy system that becomes very seamless, right? It's currently happening today. Startup companies are already doing this within the space, right? So if you've heard of photovoltaics, so solar panels today are called photovoltaics, but this is more like saying photovoltaics because the panels are no longer competing with land space, right? So this is more like panels on the sea body. So there's been a lot of discussion saying that panels shouldn't be installed it should be installed in homes, right? But in locations where you have to install solar farms, like a big amounts of solar panels, environmentalists will tell you that it's competing with agriculture. Like you have to cut a lot of trees, and that also kind of like stops, because trees also help with capturing CO2, right? So why cut the trees, right, that's producing CO2, or why compete with the land space, right, for solar panels when you can put it over in the sea that doesn't really compete with any land space. So this is why this has brought up advancements in photovoltaics, right? And energy and solar panels can now be put on the sea, right? And it's already happened. It's happening in Japan today and China. And this is something that, you will start to see a lot of it coming in the future. AI digitization. We have a lot of, digital experts here on the call, I'm sure. And AI has done a lot, right, to help with digitization. So more like predictive analysis and algorithms are able to help to harness the ability to predict future events, right? So this is also playing a part in energy, right? Because we are now able to, in the future, we'll now be able to do more with predicting how the renewable energy will be within the next, like for example, wind, solar, they don't occur all 24 hours in a day, right? So you have to predict how it's going to be within the next couple of hours, couple of days, to be able to know what kind of energy source you would use for a particular time. So there's a lot of intelligence that is coming into the energy space with smart meters, smarter grids, and all of those different things that will help to accelerate the injection of and the better use of renewable energy and other energy sources to be able to produce and help the environment. Yeah. So other things could be carbon capture, which is something that is also doing very well within the space. Solar roads, solar on the roads. Larger storage could be batteries. Now we have bigger batteries, lithium-ion based batteries. There's something called the lithium glass also. There are different technologies that are happening in the battery space. So next slide. All right, so I've kind of touched about some of the key players like World Bank, within the international space. We have Norfund, which is a Norwegian fund. So these are all development finance institutions. They're called DFIs that are also involved in providing funding for the space, right? And this has catalyzed a lot of energy flow within all the different stakeholders in the space, both international and local. So this sort of like highlights some of the bodies that are, in the space today. We also have Energy Solutions, which is where it's a company I manage. We're also involved in a lot of project development. We do a lot within the solar space. We help a lot with installing standalone solutions and also commercial businesses within Nigeria. So we're also doing a lot within development of solar. And then, we work with a lot of OEMs, and this is some of the things that has helped players within the space to be able to, because if the finance isn't there, if regulators are not there to help with regulations, it becomes very difficult to accelerate the growth of renewable energy, accelerate and improve the quality of life of people by reducing the effect of climate change. So can you go on? Next slide. Yeah. And then just to mention also, we as a company, as Energy Solutions, we will be very much in support of the initiatives that are put together by the Taekwondo Association. We'll very much be involved to support you guys, what all the initiatives that are being done, because we're also very, very interested in what your initiatives have been so far, and you guys are doing quite a lot. And for those who may also be interested in doing, having other careers outside the field of Taekwondo, you might be looking at, coming into the energy space. There's a lot that can happen within this space, right? There's a lot. Some of us I know we all have passion for the sport, which is a good thing. We all wish, success in everything that is being done within the Taekwondo Association. But there are some of us that may eventually transcend, right, from Taekwondo later in life to say, okay, we want to go into something, right? And this is like kind of like whetting your appetite to say, okay, maybe I could start something in the energy. So this sort of like highlights some of the careers that are possible, right, for we all that might be graduates. Some of us here are also still students and still thinking of what paths they want to take. So if we look at this, it's like it rightly says, we have installers. If you're in the technical field and you have interest in technical side, you might be a design engineer for solar installations. You want to be a project manager, managing different projects for your companies or even for your private endeavors. We have civil and electrical engineering. Also, you also might want to decide to be a power consultant. I'm a certified energy manager, so I'm also a consultant. And for those who may be interested, can always reach out to me. I can always guide you on what kind of paths you can take on the consultant aspect. And I'll be very happy to help. For those who are also looking to go in, who are interested in sales, who like to speak to people or solutions, you can also decide to be a sales manager. You can decide to sell products by talking to people, saying that we can do this, you can do this, you can do this, right? So for those in the law field, there's a lot of regulations that are in the energy space today, and you need lawyers that are able to manage those regulations and are able to show what can be done and how to protect companies and their interest and everything. So there are different things that can be done. There are other areas too, environmentalists, those who are able to relate with community for mini-grid solutions. You have those who may be interested, and those who are in the finance space, there also is room for you also, because accountants are very much welcome. Accountants will actually work in anywhere, any industry, but energy space also, we have a lot of accountants because there's a lot that also goes on in terms of, like I said earlier, the energy as a service part, where you have a lot of PPAs. You need accountants to manage some of the financial movements of things and all of that. Another key one is the credit risk officer. For those who, for developers that are going into energy projects, they have to evaluate the risk of going into that project. So sometimes they need credit. Some of them who are also looking to access finance and funds from international bodies, or those who are also looking to give out funds, they have to assess the risk of the project. So these are some of the careers that are possible in the industry, and I very much appreciate, and I would love to have people on this call too who may be willing to join the energy space. There's a lot of room for everyone. There's a lot of areas where we can improve upon. So thank you again for this. I think this should wrap up my presentation for now. I hope I didn't take too much time, but thank you again for listening. And I'll be willing to answer questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give a warm round of applause to Engineer Felix for that very insightful presentation. We are so passionate about this topic. Thank you so much for your presentation once again. So because of our time, I'll quickly run through the questions I have here in the chat. Okay, then I think I'll just take it one after the other. Then I take one question, then you answer, and to the last question. Okay, so the first question I have here is in relation to the sports we do, which is taekwondo. Technological advancements are in the form of electronic scoring sensors, instant video replay, and many more. Most of these advancements mostly utilize unsustainable forms. What are your thoughts about the application of green energy to technological advancements in sports? So yeah, Lina Felix, you have the floor again. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for this question. I think this is a very beautiful question because it even gives me an opportunity to see where the problems that I may not have been aware of exist, right? And it's a good thing that this question has been shared, right? So the thing about energy is it's dynamic, right? And it's flexible, and thanks to the different sources that I mentioned and how you can utilize them. Within our environment here in Nigeria, there's solar becomes the major source of, right? Solar becomes the major source of energy that we use that's easily decentralized. Let me put it that way. It is the most decentralized energy. When I mean decentralized is it can be broken down into the most minute, even if it's just to power, you all know, even just power one floodlight in your house, you can use solar panel to power it. It's the most decentralized source of energy that we have available and the cheapest source of energy right now. So the electronic scoring sensors are an important part of your sporting utilization right now. So it's possible to have solar as a form to separate that scoring chart. I'm sure obviously you don't want, I mean, in our own climate here, I'm not trying to say you will have a situation whereby power goes off and the scoring sensors or scoring things affects what shows, right? But if in case that happens, solar can cover for that. The battery technology can cover for that. So once we understand the advancements, once we understand that there's an advancement in these areas of your scoring, like scoring charts, we have electronic scoring charts. Obviously, they're all powered by some form of, they have their capacity. They have something that we can tend to calculate and say, okay, this is what needs to be powered, right? And then solar can do the job. All that needs to be done is knowing what the capacity is, knowing what we need to power, and then having a solution that is the most decentralized solution that can separate and power those scoring sensors that would not affect video replay and all of those different things. So it's something that we can look at, and it's possible to do that through using solar energy. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, yes, so thank you so much. So moving to the second question. With the state of our economy, how well do you think Nigeria can use energy to improve its quality of life?
Okay, that's a good question. Our economy today, we all know what's going on. One very, I'll speak on one direct thing, right? Which is the fuel price hike, right? The subsidy that has been removed. We all know that prices of fuel has gone up and it's still going to go up, right? Because the subsidy hasn't fully, it's been removed, but there's still some subsidy. It's still going to be good. It's still going to go up, right? Aside that, we also know that the power situation in like the cost of energy to run a house has also gone up, right? Because there's been some increase recently where we have different energy bands, right? For different areas. So to improve the quality of life, because people can't be spending so much money, to run their homes and, spending so much money to buy fuel and all of those different. So or buy fuel to power their generators, right? So we have to start to look into alternative energy, right? Today I run, for most part of my home is run by, solar, right? Because I try to stay away from buying fuel. and costly. So to improve, and that improves my own quality of life because I don't have to worry about noise. I don't have to worry about buying fuel most times, right? And I'm not trying to say this just to blow a trumpet, but I'm trying to say that we all have to think about it, to say, I know it could be it costs a lot, but we have solutions right now that you can pay over time, right? You can pay over time, even for those that may not have enough money, right? You can pay over time, but the fact is, you don't have to be turning on those generators that detrimental to your health. The noise is also, affects you as a person, and then you are paying a lot of money for the fuel that is being used. So with the state of our economy today, you have to do well to start to think of switching your energy consumption. And if you, your energy fuel use, right? And then also you think of how do I reduce your energy, the type of energy you use. So if you have an AC that is very, you don't need to put on your AC. You can, make do with a fan, right? And then you have something small to power it. So you have to start think like that. So that answers that second question. I don't know if I'm also being able to answer it.
Oh, yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So, the third question. So, someone is saying that I have worked on a rural community entirely powered by solar in the last 7 years. However, the challenge is usually with having to minimize usage to only a few hours per day and limited supported appliances. So I'm wondering if there are existing community level sustainable energy solutions that are without limits to number of hours or number of appliances supported.
Okay, so this one is a straightforward question. It's also a good question. So I've not necessarily heard of a community that's so yours looks like to be very unique. Because the ones I've seen, especially the ones like the mini grid ones, a lot of them that exist today are 24 hours, right? Most of them are maybe hybrid solutions where you have also solar and then a bit of generator, but most times the generator doesn't even come on. It's solar that usually powers them. And another thing I've realized is some of those locations, we find out that the beneficiaries of the solar solutions, when they have solar installed, because when you install an energy meter for them, you discover that and then the cost per kilowatt hour is actually very high. So they become very energy conscious and they start to reduce their energy use. That's the behavioral change that happens, right? For most of the mini grids. And what we discovered is the solar actually carries the community, right? For as long as they do. So your own case might be peculiar. I don't know what the solution was installed, but to answer your question, there are definitely a lot of communities that are running fully on solar. So the place that you worked in, the rural community must be a peculiar one, So or maybe the batteries, or maybe the solution is becoming weak, and then definitely the provider has to come and review and check. Maybe it's also the quality of batteries, it also the quality of the solar solution. So that's another area that you may be able to look at. So thank you again for that question. And I'm also wishing I was able to answer that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, move to the next question. So, so this person is okay, 1 minute. Okay. So I would like to know if your energy firm is recruiting. Someone is asking. So, please can take that
So
question.
yeah, it's a good question. So we do recruiting regularly. We do recruit. It would be also nice to know what area you're looking at, where your strength lies. So maybe it's something that we can take off the score to see where you are. But we do have recruitment from time to time. Right now, we may not be in the lookout for a skilled person right now, but it's something we can speak about. Maybe have your CV and have a chat after this to know what areas you're looking at. Maybe we can see what we can work out on this.
Okay, thank you. So, Yeah, there's another question here. So thank you to the panelists, right? Is there an opportunity to learn? That is, does the organization train people? I think that's what the person is asking.
Yes, so we do CSR programs from time to time. We do training, but our training is mostly more like CSR. We do it sometimes, I think once a year or twice a year. So we do trainings. We have a lot of in-house trainings, but for external participants that might be interested in joining, we can slate you for one of our external trainings that we do at CSR. So we do trainings here.
Okay, thank you.
CSR,
So
I
another
mean
question.
corporate social responsibility, sorry.
Yes, thank you. So another question we have here is solar energy entirely healthy? No future radioactive challenge? That is there any future radioactive challenge? How healthy is it?
So there's an argument that says that the manufacturing plants or the manufacturers that manufacture the panels themselves, what sort of energy are they using to manufacture it? So there's always that debate that happens a lot. But actually, the actual panel itself, there's no radioactive challenge. So I think there's also been discussions around after 25 years of use of the panel, how do we discard the panels, right? Because if the panels are no longer producing, there's a lot of talks on recycling and all of those different things, right? But to answer you clearly, for the use of a panel, there's no radioactive challenge at all. The only challenge could be from the manufacturing side, or after the panels have run out of their life cycle.
Okay, thank you. So I have a follow-up question on the one you answered previously concerning when you made mention of the CSR. So I would like to know, or we would like to know here, when your organization carry out CSR for the trainings. So just in case, so we can also watch out for that.
Is it when we have the CSR?
Yes, because I was asking for training.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we've not we don't have it. It's towards the end of the year, but we've not had a date yet for the program. But I'm sure that could be communicated to everyone in due course as soon as we get a slated date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is the last question here. So Master Jimmy Ogunowo is asking, considering on hazard-prone environments coupled with the lackadaisical attitude of users, what is your take on the safety of the CNG-powered vehicles in our climes? Thank you.
It's a good question. To be very frank, I'm not very sure what could be but it's a very good question. I'm not very sure what could be the dangers, right? But I know it's gas, right? But I also know that it's compressed natural gas, and I'm sure a lot of safety considerations would have been considered in its weight, the way it's packaged. But it's something that we can actually take a look at to be sure of. Me myself, I'm not even 100% sure what the risks are, which I've not really looked at. But it's a very good question. It's something that we may eventually have to see what could be the possible problems or risk of having a CNG in the vehicle. I totally agree with you. But in terms of, and I'm sure there would have been a lot of risk assessment that would have been done on it before it was adopted in Nigeria. Yeah. But it's something we can also. It's a good question actually, but I won't be able to give you a direct answer right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for answering all our questions. So we are done with the Q&A section now. I would like you to give your closing comments in just 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So again, thank you again, Grace. It's really, really, really nice to be on this call. And also, I also want to use the opportunity to thank every participant today. It's a privilege. I really love the session because I always want to impact lives, and that's the mission of our company, Fenergy Solutions. We always want to keep people's lives on, and that's because we believe that energy is a basic human right. I always love these kinds of platforms because it enables me to be able to hear what people feel about the energy space, and I saw a lot of interactions here on this webinar. So thank you again for joining. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to those who organized this. I wish to, and I look forward to supporting you guys on your Taekwondo initiative that has commenced, and I'm sure this is going to grow into bigger things in the future. Our company will really want to work with you guys, especially on the aspect of maybe powering the video replay thing that was spoken about. One of the questions we really want to see how we can also support one way or the other to some of the things, initiatives that you guys are doing. And I'm sure you will hear a lot from us in the future. Some things like the training that was asked here. We'll share maybe some of the data. Maybe some of the guys who may be interested could also join in the external training that we will conduct. So again, just summarize this to say, well done to all you guys. Continue to keep the fire burning. Continue to keep the Nigeria Taekwondo International program going on in good faith. Thank you again, and I'll be hoping to join you guys again in some other time. So thank you again.
Thank you, Engineer Felix. Thank you too. It was really an amazing section, and we also hope to see you for another webinar soon. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've almost reached the end of our webinar. So before we close, please do not go. We would like to have the vote of thanks by one of my colleagues, Abiodun, before we take the group picture. So Abiodun, please, you have the floor.
All right, good evening, everyone. A very good evening to everyone on behalf of the Nigeria Taekwondo Advancement Initiative. I say thank you to our distinguished guest speaker, Engineer Felix Arume, for the wealth of knowledge you have imparted on participants of the webinar tonight. Special thanks to all participants of both the interactive Zoom session we have had and those following on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. We are happy to see your engagement and interest towards applying green technology in your various endeavors. And we are so happy that the Sustainable Energy Solutions Company of Engineer Felix was interested in doing so much for us in Nigeria Taekwondo. Lastly, we appreciate all members of the NTAI team for their relentless efforts towards bringing this monthly webinar together. And this is the second edition in June. Our third edition, which is the July edition, promises to be very exciting. We would announce the topic very soon via our various social media channels. Once again, thank you very much as we come to the end of the webinar. Next, we'll be having a 15-minute interactive session on the forthcoming Nigeria Taekwondo Open. I'm handing over to our moderator, Grace, who would explain how this session works. Thank you once again.
Okay, thank you so much, Abiodun. Thank you for your vote of thanks. So the final section we are going to be having is also question and answer on the Nigeria Taekwondo International Open 2024. So please, dear participants, if you have any question concerning registration, whatever it is concerning the fair, so please, you can type your question in the chat and we'll take it quickly before we wrap up the webinar. Thank you. So we have 1 minute to quickly type our question. Thank you. Okay, so I have one question in the chat, so I'd like to invite Santos to answer the question. So the question says, is there free accommodation? So Santos, please. Okay, we're having more questions. So Santos, please, you have the floor.
It wouldn't be, hi everyone, good evening. I wouldn't state categorically today that there would be free accommodation, you know. And that's not to say that they wouldn't, but because, and I'll just be as blunt as we can be, we would not want to make promises that we do not keep, So when we know that that is a reality, we will tell you, but just make the assumption that there isn't any as of today, you know. We are, I don't want to give the wrong impression. We are working towards it, and it's not an obligation also, in many ways, but we will know that it is a very important factor that plays an important role when we compete. So we're thinking about that, trust me. I've all competed before as well. So yeah, no news right now on whether there's free accommodation or not, but we're working on it. Keep in mind that there's also the really, really cheap accommodation beside the venue and around the venue. Quite cheap actually.
Thank you. So the second question here is also saying that will there be seeding? Like how many percentage per weight?
Okay. So we're looking at a minimum of 25% in each weight, and because each weight is going to have a maximum of 32 players, it means that you're looking at seeding 8 players, or in a realistic situation, 12 to 16. Now, obviously the best practice there would be to do 8, but we would also see if you have a very logical way to seed 16 that is fair, we'll do that. We want to make it as balanced and seeded as possible. Um, yeah, and I guess I'll just segue into the next question, which is what's the criteria for seeding, especially considering the new WT introduction of a 2-year cycle? Okay, so criteria for seeding is this is an NTF sanctioned event. And in as much as we may have had aspersions as regards the most recent rankings that were released by the NTF at the time last year, we will use that to an extent that it is logical. We would also at the event, have a technical meeting where every coach who has come to the event would be briefed on our thoughts on how the seeding will be done, because we're very big on seeding, and also do a live, well, in some ways, live seeding. I don't want to say live seeding, but a specific seeding where everybody knows who's seeded and what at the end of the day, and then the draws are done randomly. 2 year cycle of the WT. It's at the moment it won't in any way affect or even be considered at the moment as a thought, because it's for the event in Ibadan, it won't be so relevant to us. So the international seedings from WT, rather rankings from WT, will also obviously be considered as important. So if you have a player who, for example, is from Ghana and is doing well on WT rankings, you can't say because of person is not fighting in person hasn't fought in KAC, then you wouldn't also consider the person for seeding. So this is why, because I know as an individual that there's no definite or defined science that we can use right now to tell you that this is exactly how it must be, because there's no proof. There's no proof in it if I tell you that this is a defined way. So we have to then sit together with the technical teams and propose the thoughts. Okay, these are things we would.
I think we lost Santos. So Abiodun, please could you complete the answer to that question and perhaps take the next question before Santos returns. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Just as Santos has said, there's no predefined criteria for seeding at the moment. So we would have to look at all possible combinations of criteria, and we'll all have to agree with it. That's why we'll be doing some form of live publication of seeds, so everyone can follow through. And then, but yeah, we are open to thoughts about seeding and everything. But yeah, we are confident that with the okay, I think Santos will be back. So we are confident that with the combination of criteria, the WT ranks, uh, competitions and at national events, and a combination of them all would bring out something that will be fair enough for everyone. Yeah, the next question says the normal registration starts tomorrow. Can I register tomorrow and pay before month end? No, please. As soon as you submit your registration, you would receive a mail stating the deadline for payment. Please ensure you stick to that deadline for payment. In fact, it's advisable that you register when you are ready to pay, because you are only depriving other people from registering. And as we have been doing right from the early bird registration period, we are reaching a limit already. As such, pre-approvals will be based on your history, and as well would be sending a deadline. If you are approved to pay, you sent a deadline. If you don't meet that deadline, you would have to just decline your registration. So please, as you are registering, if you receive a mail, attempt to pay. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Santos now to continue. Thank you.
Oh, I think we lost Santos again. So since we don't have any more questions, Abiodun, would you like to say something on the fair? Where we are currently. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So in addition to the Nigeria Taekwondo Open, we'll be having a wellness fair. In this fair, we are promoting health and wellness. So we are open to vendors that have products and services to showcase at the wellness fair. So you can reach out to us for more information, and we'll provide some more information. For now, just know that there'll be a wellness fair, and we will be providing opportunities for people to display their products and services. So you can reach out for more information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So, to wrap up, I'd like to call on Santos to give the goodbyes. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. I apologize. I am in some remote place in Malawi and the internet went off. So sorry. It was good to have this conversation. And if I missed any questions, maybe you can reach out to me privately so I don't also waste our time much more than I already have or we already have. Someone says one more question, please. But that was an opportunity to actually type the question. Um, the the ones I see here, normal restrictions. Let me just quickly run through them. Normal restriction starts tomorrow. Can I? So I mean, you're free to do what works, but we also have timelines, and we will also need to stick to the timelines out of respect for everybody who has done it early as well. So if the weight category you are competing in is also free, because we will have 32 players in each weight, and of course, please, we want everyone to compete as much as we can, and we apologize that we have only said 32 players per weight because we want to be able to give you something optimal. So if we plan for 32 at maximum, we know that we are delivering that. So even if we have 25, we are then even putting ourselves in a better position and handling it better. Obviously, in the future, hopefully, to be um, obviously in the future to be you know much more expanded. Can I change width after payment? Again, the logic, everything that we've told you before is what still happens till today. If you think about it, if you've been approved to compete in a specific weight at a specific time and want to change to a new weight, that's fine. But the rules of the new weight will also apply. So if it's a weight where there are 20 people already, you'll be coming in as if someone who is starting from beginning and hoping to come in, because like we said, in as much as we want 32, when it's 20, we become a bit stricter just so because we want to make it fair and balanced so everybody has an opportunity to compete. Our international guests and um, are very properly ranked players. So, if you would like to change your weight category, that's really it's possible, but it will come, in a way that you understand that you would have to be seen as someone who is restarting. Because imagine I register in heavyweight because there are few right now, and I pay and I'm approved, and I say, oh, now I want to be in Fame Fly. It would not sound logical to those in Finfly who had to go through the same process. But yeah, beyond that, thank you everyone for being around. Um, Felix, Engineer Felix at the time had said some things, but he didn't want to hit it on the head because he didn't want to officially announce it himself. But Free Energy Solutions will be supporting Nigeria Taekwondo International Opens. They'll be powering the event with solar solutions so that our scoreboard, everything stays on throughout the events. We don't have to blink. We don't have to step outside to change over, join anything like that. So really appreciate the support from Free Energy Solutions. And maybe there's even more, but time will tell. It's really great to see companies like this that see our vision and then, buy into it and try and support dreams like we have, the thousands of dreams that we have. But yeah, it was good to have this conversation. We've taken 41 minutes extra of your time. Have a nice day, everyone.